You've seen them before. The two lines that look different lengths but are actually the same. The static image of swirling snakes that seems to move. The drawing that is both a young woman and an old woman at the same time. These are optical illusions, they mess with our heads, we know they are tricks, but we fall for them anyway. The question is, why? Why do our brains get fooled so easily by a few clever lines or colors on a page? The simple answer is that our brains are built for survival, not for absolute accuracy. Your brain isn't a perfect camera recording every detail of the world. It's more like a super fast, predictive computer. It takes in a flood of information from your eyes every second. It's too much to process. So, your brain takes shortcuts. It makes assumptions. It uses past experience to guess what's going on right now. Most of the time, these guesses are incredibly good. They let you catch a ball, drive a car, and recognize a friend from across the street. But optical illusions are designed specifically to exploit these shortcuts. They are situations where the brain's best guess is the wrong one. An illusion isn't a sign that your brain is broken. It's a sign that it's working exactly as it's supposed to, just in a situation it wasn't designed for. Let's start with the most basic idea. Your brain hates ambiguity. It wants to make sense of the world, and it wants to do it fast. To do this, it has a whole library of rules it has learned over your lifetime. One rule is about how light and shadow work. Shadows make things look darker, so when your brain sees something in a shadow, it automatically brightens it in your mind. It says, I know that spot is in a shadow, so the surface itself must be lighter than it appears. This brings us to one of the most famous illusions, the checker shadow illusion. It's a picture of a checkerboard with a green cylinder on it. The cylinder is casting a shadow over some of the squares. There are two squares pointed out labeled A and B. Square A is in the light, and it's a dark square. Square B is in the shadow, and it looks like a light square. Everyone agrees on this. A is dark, B is light. But if you take a color sample of those two squares, you find they are the exact same shade of gray. Exactly. This feels impossible. How can they be the same? It's because of the shortcut your brain is taking. It sees square A and says, okay, that's a dark square in the light. Simple. Then it looks at square B. It sees two things. It sees the shade of gray, but it also sees the shadow being cast by the cylinder. The context is crucial. Your brain's logic goes something like this. That square is in a shadow, things in shadows appear darker than they really are, therefore to be this shade of gray inside a shadow, the square itself must be a very light color. Your brain automatically corrects the color of square B for you, making you perceive it as a light square. It's not a conscious thought. It's an automatic, instantaneous process. The illusion works by tricking a system that, in the real world, is incredibly useful. It allows you to recognize the true color of objects under different lighting conditions, a skill called color constancy. This idea of context is everywhere in illusions. The world around an object changes how we see that object. Take the Ebbinghaus illusion. You have two orange circles that are the exact same size. One is surrounded by a bunch of very large blue circles. The other is surrounded by a bunch of very small blue circles. The orange circle surrounded by the big circles looks small. The orange circle surrounded by the small circles looks big. Again, they are identical. Why? Your brain uses comparison to judge size. It's a relative process. When it sees the first orange circle, it's not just seeing the circle, it's seeing the whole picture. It compares the orange circle to the big blue circles around it and concludes, well, compared to these giants, that orange circle must be tiny. Then it looks at the second arrangement. It compares the other orange circle to the tiny blue circles and says, compared to these little dots, that orange circle must be huge. The brain doesn't judge the size of the orange circle in a vacuum. It uses the surrounding information as a reference point. This is another shortcut. It's usually faster and more efficient to judge size relatively than to try and calculate an object's absolute size from a distance. The illusion simply gives the brain misleading reference points. The brain doesn't just use context to judge color and size. It also uses it to build a three-dimensional world from the flat, two-dimensional images that hit your retinas. This is one of its most amazing tricks, and it's the source of many powerful illusions. Your brain has a whole set of rules for creating depth. One of these rules is linear perspective. You know this one intuitively. Think of a picture of a long straight road or a pair of railroad tracks. The parallel lines of the tracks appear to get closer together as they go off into the distance, eventually meeting at a point on the horizon. Your brain knows this rule. It sees converging lines and thinks depth. Now consider the Ponzo illusion. It's just two horizontal lines drawn over a drawing of railroad tracks receding into the distance. The two horizontal lines are the same length, but the top line, the one that's further away on the tracks, looks much longer than the bottom one. The reason is perspective. Your brain sees the converging lines of the tracks and immediately interprets the image as a 3D space. It places the top horizontal line further away than the bottom one. Then its logic kicks in. The rule is if two objects create an image of the same size on my retina, but one of them is much further away, then the further object must be bigger in real life. Your brain applies this rule to the Ponzo illusion. It thinks the top line is further away, so it scales it up in your perception, making it look longer. It's trying to build a consistent 3D world, but it's doing so based on a flat drawing that's been cleverly designed to fool its depth perception system. A more extreme example of this is the Ames room. You've probably seen videos of it. It's a room that looks like a normal rectangular room from a specific viewing point. But when two people stand in the back corners of the room, one looks like a giant and the other looks like a dwarf. Then they walk across the room and seem to shrink or grow before your eyes. The secret is that the room is not rectangular at all. It's a distorted trapezoid. The floor is slanted. One back corner is much closer to the viewer than the other, and the windows are different sizes. But because the room is built with such precision from the one peephole, all the lines converge in a way that perfectly mimics the perspective of a normal room. Your brain is faced with a choice. It can either believe that the people are changing size, or it can believe that the room, which looks perfectly normal, is actually a bizarrely shaped box. Your brain has a lifetime of experience with rectangular rooms and almost no experience with people magically shrinking and growing. So it takes the path of least resistance. It bets on the room being normal. It assumes the walls are parallel and the floor is flat. Based on that assumption, the only possible conclusion is that the people are different sizes. Your brain is so committed to its rules about perspective and how rooms are shaped that it will literally change your perception of a person's size to make the world make sense. Beyond context and depth, there's another major principle at play. Our brains are pattern-finding machines. They want to see complete whole objects. They will fill in missing information to create a coherent picture. This is often called Gestalt psychology, which is just a way of saying that the brain prefers to see things as a unified whole rather than a collection of separate parts. The classic example is the Canissa triangle. The image is just 3 black circles with a wedge cut out of each one, like 3 Pac-Man figures and 3 V-shapes. That's all that is physically there on the page. But what does everyone see? They see a bright white triangle sitting on top of another black outline triangle. The brain creates the lines of this white triangle out of thin air. It fills in the gaps between the Pac-Man mouths. Why? Because a white triangle on top of 3 black circles is a much simpler, more elegant explanation for the image than 3 weirdly arranged Pac-Man shapes. The brain assumes there's an object there covering up the circles. It constructs this object for you. This isn't just a fun party trick. This ability to fill in the gaps is essential for survival. Imagine a tiger partially hidden behind some bushes. You don't just see a collection of orange and black stripes and some leaves. Your brain instantly connects the visible parts and completes the shape of the tiger. You perceive the whole animal, even the parts you can't see. This allows you to react quickly. The tendency to see a complete triangle in the Canissa illusion comes from the same system that helps you see a predator in the wild. The illusion just shows you the raw mechanism at work. This drive to find a single, stable interpretation also leads to another class of illusions, ambiguous or multi-stable images. These are drawings where your brain can't decide between 2 equally valid interpretations. The most famous is probably Rubens' vase. It's a black and white image. You can either see a white vase in the center, or you can see 2 black faces in profile looking at each other. But you can't see both at the same time. Your brain has to choose one. Look at it for a while, and your perception will flip back and forth between the vase and the faces. Another example is the Necker cube, a simple line drawing of a cube. Is the front face of the cube on the lower left, or is it on the upper right? There is no correct answer. The 2D drawing doesn't provide enough information to resolve the ambiguity. So your brain picks one interpretation and sticks with it for a few seconds. Then, without you even trying, it might suddenly flip to the other one. This flipping shows the active nature of perception. Your brain isn't just passively receiving an image. It's actively testing hypotheses. Is it a cube facing this way? Let's try that. Okay, now is it a cube facing that way? Let's try that. The illusion traps your brain in a loop between 2 good guesses. Then there are the illusions that seem to defy logic the most, the ones that move. The rotating snakes illusion is a powerful example. It's a static image made of concentric circles of colored scales. But as you look at it, especially in your peripheral vision, the circles seem to slowly, creepily rotate. you can prove to yourself that it's not moving. If you stare directly at any single point, the motion stops in that spot. But as soon as you let your eyes wander, the slithering starts again. This illusion works by exploiting how your brain and eyes process sequences of light and dark. The specific arrangement of the colored scales, a repeating pattern of black, blue, white, and yellow range, tricks the motion detecting neurons in your brain. Your eyes are never perfectly still. They make tiny, jerky movements called saccades. As your eyes move over this specific pattern of brightness, your brain interprets the changing signals as movement. It's a bit like how a movie works. A movie is just a series of still pictures shown very quickly. Your brain smooths them out and perceives continuous motion. The rotating snake's illusion is like a one-frame movie that tricks your brain into seeing motion where there is none. The pattern of light and dark essentially pings the motion detectors in your brain in just the right sequence to create a false signal. Finally, we come to what might be the most talked about illusion of the modern era, the dress. In 2015, a photo of a dress blew up the internet because people couldn't agree on its color. Some people saw it as clearly blue and black. Others were just as certain it was white and gold. The fight was real. People were adamant. How could two people look at the same photo and see completely different colors? This goes back to the idea of color constancy and the brain's assumptions, just like the checker shadow illusion, but on a much grander scale. The problem with the photo of the dress is that the lighting is terrible. It's overexposed and washed out. Your brain can't tell for sure what the source of the light is. Is the dress in a bright blue tinted daylight shadow? Or is it under a yellowish artificial indoor light? Your brain has to make a guess. And the guess it makes determines the color you see. If your brain assumes the dress is being lit by a bright bluish light like daylight from a window, it will subtract the blue tint to figure out the true color of the dress. It says, okay, take away the blue light and what's left? White and gold. So you see a white and gold dress. But if your brain assumes the dress is under a warm yellow-ish artificial light like a lamp in a store, it will do the opposite. It will subtract the yellow tint. It says, take away the yellow light and what's left? Blue and black. So you see a blue and black dress. The photo is perfectly ambiguous, sitting right on the perceptual cliff between these two interpretations. Which one you see depends on your own brain's history and its unconscious assumptions about how the world is typically lit. People who tend to spend more time in daylight are slightly more likely to see it as white and gold. People who are more accustomed to artificial light might be more likely to see it as blue and black. There is no right or wrong answer in terms of perception. The dress was, in reality, blue and black. But the illusion demonstrates that the colors we see aren't just a direct reading of the wavelengths of light hitting our eyes. They are a construction, an interpretation based on a lifetime of experience with light, shadow, and context. So when we look at an optical illusion, we're not just seeing a clever trick. We are getting a rare glimpse under the hood of our own minds. We are seeing the machinery of perception in action. These illusions reveal the shortcuts, the assumptions, and the rules that our brains use every millisecond to build our reality. The brain values speed and efficiency over perfect accuracy. It fills in gaps, it judges things based on their surroundings, it builds a 3D world from 2D information, and it makes its best guess about what's out there. Most of the time, the system works flawlessly. It creates a stable, predictable, and useful version of reality that allows us to function. But illusions are the edge cases. They are the carefully crafted scenarios that push this system until it breaks. They are the moments when the brain's guess, for once, is wrong. And in that error, we can see the genius of the system itself. They show us that we don't just see the world, we actively create it. The world you experience is not a perfect replica of what's out there. It's a beautiful, efficient, and sometimes flawed simulation running constantly inside your head. And that in itself is the most amazing trick of all.